Okay, so this is a little bit of a departure from what we usually do. We're usually doing amplifiers and guitar stuff, but lovely sounds of being in the basement and overhead. I don't know if y'all heard that. Nice water rushing. We have today a Denon DP-15F turntable, and I do like my share of turntables. This one is particularly dirty. There's just a good layer of grime on it from being in storage, but that's no big deal. There's obviously a lot of grime and stuff. We can all clean that up. So basically what I just want to do is I want to make sure that I give it a quick look over here and see how it behaves, and make sure, you know, what functions work, what don't, because obviously we know we need to clean it up. And then we'll check the stylus and maybe adjust the tracking force and all of that. It seems to track pretty light as it is, which is fine. No consequences there. I just plugged it in, turned on the power. The record size, which is in metric here, it's 30 centimeter, I believe, or 17 centimeter, which would be, 12-inch, 7-inch. That switch works fine. I press it switches between the two, 33 and 45. The switch works okay. The repeat switch, when I push it, the light comes on, the light goes off. The lifter button, this one's kind of intermittent. Sometimes I'll push it and it'll flick, and then it will. I'm sure it's going to work fine now. But it was being a little squirrely. I think it just has some dirt in it. Probably needs to be cleaned. And we'll put the lifter up so it doesn't touch anything. We'll hit start. And the platter spins. It is a direct drive quartz lock. Okay, it was set to the 17-inch size. So that'd be a 7-inch record. And seems to run with enough torque. We'll slow it down a little bit. The lock light up here goes off. We'll let it go. A modest amount of torque on this. I've seen some of these direct drives that have more torque. So I'll hit the stop button, and it seems to go back okay and stop. So I think she works okay. Let's try the 30-inch size and the 45 speed and see how she does there. Still have the lifter marked up, so it's not going to tear our stylus up. I don't know if the stylus is any good at this point. That's actually a fair amount of torque. Yeah, that's not bad. So I think in this case, this one's just going to need a cleanup. I don't want to scratch that. Clean the switches out, and just clean the unit up, and then do a general turntable setup. So this one appears to be in pretty good shape. Just physical cleanup on these things. There's a cleaner you can get from the dollar store. It's called LA's Totally Awesome. It's actually a degreaser type cleaner. That stuff will, you got to cut it with some water, but that stuff will cut through grime like you wouldn't believe. These usually pull straight off, and it does good. Nothing jammed there. This thing looks like a tape head over here, and that tape head reads this magnetic strip. So it's like this is along the rim here, this is like a tone. So when this spins, it's listening for the tone and to see if the tone is too fast or slow, and that's how it determines how fast it is. You'll find that on a lot of late 70s, 80s-ish type direct drive turntables, and I'm pretty sure this is 80s. It sure looks 80s if it's not 80s. So just going to do a big time physical cleanup on it, and a little bit of adjustment. We'll make sure the anti-skate mechs and all that work, but I think this will just be a setup. So I'm going to get to scrubbing and cleaning, and if anything interesting happens, we'll turn the camera back on. Okay, so I've significantly cleaned a bunch of the dirt off of the unit. It's not perfect, because it probably never will be perfect, but it's a lot closer. A majority of the dirt and gunk that was on it is cleaned. So effectively now I just kind of have to deal with what we're going to do here. Our cartridge is a Pickering XV15/625E, and from what I understand, this is not a joke of a cartridge. They're very respectable, but this stylus is in particularly nasty shape. I have no idea if that'll focus on that, but this stylus is in nasty shape. So we're going to get a stylus for this, and then we set it up, and I think we're good. One of my tricks, you can probably see it sitting here, once you clean the dirt off of something, I use synthetic car wax, and that will actually help with some of the scuffs in the dust cover. It doesn't get it perfect, obviously, but it improves it all, gives it a little bit more of a shine, and it really does help clean the dirt down. It helps clean the dirt too, especially the deep stuff. So even if you clean it with like a cleaner of some sort, you clean it, it's still a little bit grimy. That synthetic car wax, when you really rub that in, that will actually break a ton of that dirt up, because it's very, very slightly abrasive. It has never hurt any plastic that I could tell. So next time you see this, I suppose we'll be setting it up, and we'll have to be on a level surface. This little work table is definitely not a good level surface for us to work on. But we'll set the tracking force and check the alignment and all of that stuff after we get a stylus. Thanks. Okay, so welcome to part 2, I guess, of this Denon turntable. I got all the physical dirt cleaned up, and the original stylus here, which is pretty roached. That diamond just doesn't look good at all. I was able to get a replacement for the Pickering cartridge. This is a Pickering XV-15-625E. And it does have that little stylus brush, which is common on the Pickerings. I've had some people say that these replacements don't stay in the cartridge, but this one stays in real good, so I have good hopes for it anyway. Really short cantilever on that, but anyway, we'll see how well that works. We just need to set it up here. So what we want to do is we want to use our Cartridge Protractor. First I'll put it back in the head shell, or in the and this may very well have the angle set up correctly, because I did not change the angle at all. None of that was actually changed. It is what it was. So if whoever was here before me set it up correctly, then it's still good. And we're going to use a Cartridge Protractor. This is something I bought many years ago from Lyle Cartridges. I'm sure somebody still sells these, but I like them better than the print-it-yourself kind of cartridge protractors, because those, you're relying on the printer, and might not be as accurate, and plus the mirror finish on this does help. So effectively, stick my big giant head in the shot, sorry about that. Effectively, we just need to bring this to the middle and place the stylus directly on the center line, and then we look down and evaluate the angle. And quite frankly, it looks atrocious. The angle is way, way off. So this is going to take a lot of up-close eyeballing, and it's going to be annoying to you. But what I want to do is I want to get, when I'm viewing from above, I want the angle of the protractor to line up correctly there, and then come to here. This one's the most important. This one's nice if you can get it. And once we get it to line up in both spots, then we're aligned, and then we'll move on to tracking force. Okay, well, after a little bit of fiddling around, and I have to get my head down there really close to actually see, because you want to get the stylus precisely in the middle of those tracking points, A and B. And once that's accomplished, then you're good. So this head shell, the cartridge was definitely out of alignment. I know a lot of turntable aficionados will get all mad. Oh, you need the bare walled or the log and graft or whatever. There's all kinds of different theories, but quite frankly, I've used this protractor to great success, and I usually don't have too many troubles. The only thing that I have trouble with sometimes is it fits so darn tight on the spindle that it's a pain in the butt to get off of there. But other than that, it's happy. So now we're going to move on to the tracking force, and we're going to use the Shure SFG2. Again, this is old too. Both of these components are probably 15 years old. But I know the SFG is still made. And the recommended manufacturer tracking force for this cartridge is somewhere between 1.5 and 1 3/4 grams. And since it has the brush on it, I'm going to err towards the 1 3/4 grams, because that brush will help reduce tracking force just a little bit. So on our scale, we're going to go somewhere between the 0.75 and 1, because we're going to put it on the inside weight here, which will effectively require double the force. So just set that in there. Set our stylus so it goes in between those two, and we can see the tracking force is way too heavy. So we'll back the counterweight up here a ways, get it closer to a balance. And we're still running heavy, so we'll back it up some more. Still running heavy. This cartridge must be a feather. We're backing up to the edge of what this is even capable of. Hopefully we're finding a balance point now. We're getting really close. We're starting to see some balance. Okay. Either that or that brush. See, we've log jammed back there. That counterweight won't fly with that. So my guess is the reason the other cartridge had the weight removed, or the brush removed, was because of the weight of the brush causing a problem on that. So we'll try to remove the brush and see if we can get the tracking force where it needs to be. Okay, so what I've discovered, it has been a long time since I've worked on one of these 80s Denon tables. There's a couple of things I remember about them, but this was not one of them. When the armature, this fully automatic armature, when it gets to the top, it almost has a little bit of a spring-loaded downforce, so it's completely and totally inaccurate as far as the tracking force. So I had to take the mat off just to get that little bit farther there to accommodate the balance, and we've got it running at about 1.6 grams-ish. That should be fine. If I put the brush on here, that throws too much weight forward, and there's not enough counterweight back here to deal with it. And if I try to turn the counterweight back, then it ends up brushing on the corner of the table. And that's just a design thing. They tried to get this as small and compact as possible. It's a cool table when it works, but these things are a pain in the butt to set up. The other thing that's a total nightmare about these is setting the anti-skate. Under normal circumstances, I can use a thing called the Cartridge Sweep record. I think they were like 25 bucks or whatever, but it's an ungrooved record in the middle, and you can just put the stylus on here and set it so it quits sliding back and forth. It does not work on one of these Denons. It just doesn't. So what we use instead is the Shure Phono test record, and this record I bought it on eBay for like 10 bucks. It just has a test tone, and you can set it in the middle of the record and listen to the annoying test tone like through headphones, and adjust the anti-skate so it sounds equal in left and right channels, and then you know you got the anti-skate set. But the cartridge was definitely out of alignment. It's too bad. I love these little brushes because they ground out static, but oh well, no dice. So we're going to run this without the brush, and we got it balanced and we got it aligned. I'm going to double check that alignment one more time, and then put some headphones on and set the anti-skate, and then we'll give it a final test to make sure it sounds okay. Okay, so this is my Cartridge Sweep record, and this is the thing I absolutely don't get about these turntables. I don't necessarily get why, but I figured out a workaround. If I drop the needle on it, the anti-skate is set at 0. If I let it down, it rides right to the middle. It zips right to the middle. So we'll lift it again, come back. We'll set the anti-skate at the highest setting, which should be shoving the needle that way to the outside. I'm sorry, stylus. I'm calling it a needle. What kind of audiophile am I? We'll let it back down, and again, boom, runs right to the middle again. So the Cartridge Sweeper record just does not work on this particular table. And why, I honestly don't know, but I intend to try and figure it out. I'm going to just take this Cartridge record over to one of my other tables, which has a spring type anti-skate, and I'll show you how it usually works. Okay, so here we're looking at one of my tables. It's a Sony PSX5, which doesn't really matter, but we're in the unlathed portion of the record, and the cartridge stays in place. If I turn the anti-skate too far down, you can see it walks out. If I turn it too tightly, it starts to walk in. So you'll actually find a happy medium where it quits walking. And that's generally where you set it, just based on where it stops walking. And we're right about there. I just made a minor adjustment to it. I don't want to throw it off. This table's already sounding really good. So we'll turn that record off. We'll bring this Denon around and we'll try to set it by sound. Okay, so here's our Shure test record number 2. I have no idea if you'll be able to hear this, but quite frankly, if the anti-skate is not set correctly, this annoying sounding test tone will have distortions. So we'll play it. That's where the anti-skate is definitely wrong. And just going through different bands of the same annoying test tone. So it looks like right about in the middle between, actually it's about 2. I have choices from 0 to 3 here on the anti-skate's little gauge. It seems like 2 seems to be about the happy medium with the least amount of fuzzy distortion. So now we'll play a record, and if a record sounds okay, then I know we're good. Okay, so we selected an independent record and we'll talk over it, but push the start button, it seems to come up to speed. Cartridge doesn't wrap on the record or anything, it goes up high enough. And we'll listen to what we have. Where's my sound? Where's my music? There it is. So I'll be rocking between the left and the right channel just to hear if I hear any weird anomalies, and then we'll try it again from the middle of the record. Check one channel and the other. On the outside everything sounds good, so we'll press the up. We'll go to the middle here. I really don't want to have some kind of copyright strike. This is Marine Research. It's a band from the UK. It's on independent label K Records. Very good stuff. Check it out. So far everything sounds fine. Then we'll go to the far inside. This is usually where you're going to hear the most distortions, particularly anything with the letter S in it is going to sound fuzzy. And cymbals will particularly sound atrocious. I cannot find anything wrong with that. The cymbals sound okay all the way through the record. The letter S doesn't sound distorted. Female voices with the letter S are usually the ones that'll get your goat on most turntables. Now, granted, this is an okay cartridge with an aftermarket needle. I'm not expecting the greatest performance in the world, but that is very well within acceptable. I think this is fixed, and we'll put the lid on it and send it back to the client. I hope he loves it. For advice for anybody who owns one of these Denon tables, this cartridge is too freaking heavy. Find a featherweight cartridge. This particular cartridge is too heavy. You want to find a very lightweight cartridge because that arm just gives you limited options. Those little black narrow ortophones are pretty feather light. Those work pretty good. But this cartridge was already on there and already set up wrong anyway. So rather than order a new one, I figured I'd see what I could do to make it work. And I seem to have been able to, through a lot of fiddling, achieve the accurate tracking force and the correct alignment angle. So it does work. But if you own one of these, the automatic function is really cool. But find a light cartridge. This one likes a very light cartridge. So before we move this, we'll make sure we lock the arm so we don't damage that new Stylus, which seems to work just fine. And thanks for watching. Hopefully you'll maybe learned a little bit about this particular model turntable. They're fine. I don't have any problems with them, but they're quirky. I mean, none of the stuff that we do on the normal turntable setup seems to apply here. They're very specific about the cartridge you put on them. Setting the anti-skate's a goofy thing, but they can be made to perform really well. So this is probably this is an early 80s, I think maybe like an 82, 84 or something like that, Denon. But hey, it's working now. Ready to go back to the customer. Now we got to service his amplifier, which I think is going to be in okay shape.